My name is Justin Gosha. I'm 46 years old, and on December 3rd, 2024, I died in a car accident for 9 minutes and came face to face with Jesus. What he revealed to me about the sin that has trapped so many, leading them to eternal darkness, is something I never could have imagined. It will shake you to your very soul. For 45 years, I lived like most men do in America, busy, distracted, running after money and comfort. I wasn't a bad person. I wasn't a criminal. I was just a good guy who thought that was enough. But Jesus showed me that the devil's most successful trap isn't about making people wicked. No, it's about keeping people comfortable in their goodness, allowing their souls to slip quietly into hell without them ever knowing it. I grew up in suburban Cleveland, Ohio. My father worked at the Ford plant, and my mother was a school secretary. We weren't religious, but we weren't completely godless either. We said grace at Thanksgiving, went to church on Christmas and Easter, and Mom made sure I learned the Lord's Prayer. Mom would try to get us to go to church regularly when I was young. Every few months, she'd announce that we were going to start going to Sunday services. Dad would complain about losing his sleep, but he'd put on his tie anyway, and we'd all pile into the old station wagon. I remember those Sundays so clearly. The stiff wooden pews digging into my back, my collar tight around my neck, and my pants too itchy. I'd look at the clock, counting down the minutes until we could leave and watch football. The pastor was nice enough, but I couldn't relate to what he was saying. He was talking about people who died thousands of years ago. I was more interested in my baseball cards than any of that. After a few weeks, though, the attendance would fade away. Dad would find excuses, too tired from work, the weather was bad, or there was an important game on TV. Mom would argue a little, but never too strongly. Eventually, we fell back into sleeping in on Sundays, treating church like a box to check off rather than something that mattered. When I was in my senior year of high school, my mom made one last attempt to get me to take faith seriously. She'd been diagnosed with breast cancer and started going to Bible study. Something in her changed during that time. She found a real hunger for God. One night, she came to me and said, "Bobby, I want you to come to church with me this Sunday. Really come, not just sit there. You need to hear what Pastor Johnson has been saying about salvation." I was 17, cocky, and convinced I had life all figured out. "Mom, I appreciate what you're going through, but I don't need someone telling me how to live," I said. "I'm a good person. I don't hurt anyone. I get decent grades. I help out at home. I've never been in real trouble. If there is a God, I'm sure he's fine with that." I didn't see the hurt in her eyes, though it was obvious. I was too self-absorbed to notice. I kissed her on the cheek and left, certain that my own goodness was enough to keep me in God's good graces. That was the spiritual pride that would keep me from God for the next 28 years. Mom died when I was 19. At her funeral, Pastor Johnson spoke about how my mother had spent her final months praying for me. He said that she prayed especially for me to understand that good works alone don't open heaven's gates. To be honest, I was irritated that he made her death about my faith, or lack of it. After the service, church members came to me with invitations to visit, but I politely declined. Mom was gone, and with her, my last tie to anything spiritual was cut. College became the place where I perfected my philosophy of self-sufficient morality. I studied business administration, worked part-time at a sporting goods store, and built my worldview around personal responsibility, hard work, and treating people decently. I didn't drink excessively, didn't do drugs, didn't sleep around, didn't cheat on exams. By every measure I cared about, I was living a good, clean, moral life. I had friends who went to campus ministries and Bible studies, but I found their enthusiasm embarrassing. They seemed so needy, so dependent on this invisible God. I preferred to handle my problems myself. When they invited me to Christian fellowship meetings, I'd always come up with some excuse. Too busy, too tired, too much going on. I'd say God helps those who help themselves, not realizing the phrase wasn't even in the Bible. But that was my whole mindset, really. I believed in God in theory, but trusted only in myself when it came to the real world. I was, for all intents and purposes, a practical atheist, one who showed up for church twice a year just to keep up appearances. Then I met Sarah. It was senior year. She was studying elementary education and came from a family that was a bit more religious than mine. They went to church, Methodist, about once in a while and owned a Bible that they'd occasionally open. But like me, Sarah treated faith like a cultural tradition rather than something deeply personal. There was no real connection with God for either of us, just rituals we followed, because that's what people did. Sarah was perfect for me, or so I thought. She was everything I wanted, intelligent but not intimidating, moral without being judgmental, and beautiful without being high maintenance. She came from a middle-class family, just like mine, with the same views on family, success, and happiness. We weren't interested in anything too religious. We just wanted the basics: good jobs, a house, a family, and maybe a couple of vacations. We dated for 2 years, always talking about our future. We both wanted children. We wanted nice homes, stable careers, the kind of life that other people admired. We wanted comfort, security, but we never talked about God. Not really. Every now and then, Sarah would say something like, "I believe in God, but I don't think he's keeping track of every little thing we do. I think he wants us to be happy and kind to one another. The rest is just church politics." And I agreed with her. To me, it was all just noise, background stuff that didn't really matter. We got married in 2001 in a small ceremony at Sarah's family church. It was a beautiful day, but spiritually it felt hollow. We said our vows about God bringing us together, but truthfully, we were just making promises to each other. The whole thing felt more like a formality. I landed a job as a sales manager at a medical equipment company. Sarah taught 3rd grade, and we bought a modest house in a quiet neighborhood with good schools. Life was predictable, comfortable, respectable. We paid our bills, kept our lawn perfectly trimmed, helped out our elderly neighbors when we could, and donated to charity at Christmas. We were doing everything right. When Emma was born in 2004, followed by Jake in 2007, I felt like I'd hit the jackpot. Our little family was perfect. We were giving them everything we didn't have: stability, education, extracurriculars. We were parents who were committed to each other and to our kids. I threw myself into fatherhood. I coached Emma's softball team, helped Jake ride his bike for the first time, never missed a school play or science fair. Sarah and I read all the parenting books, signed them up for music lessons, and taught them the importance of hard work, kindness, and honesty. Our kids turned out great. Emma and Jake were polite, well-behaved, and good students. Other parents would ask us for advice, and we'd tell them our philosophy: discipline, clear expectations, lots of love, teaching by example. I always believed the most important thing was showing your kids how to live with integrity. They didn't need a lot of religious lectures. They needed to see their parents living it. Emma and Jake were becoming the kind of people we'd always hoped they would be. They made us proud. Church came up occasionally, especially when the kids started asking questions we couldn't answer. Questions like, "Where do people go when they die?" from Emma when she was about 6. Or, "Who made the trees in the sky?" from Jake when he was 4. These were just normal, curious kid questions, but Sarah and I found ourselves fumbling for answers. We didn't know how to give them something solid without sounding uncertain. "Well, sweetheart," Sarah would say, trying to make sense of it, "most people believe there's a heaven where good people go when they die. And yes, God made the trees, the sky, everything beautiful. But the most important thing is that we love each other and try to be kind to everyone we meet." Sometimes, these conversations made us feel guilty enough to visit the local Presbyterian church for a few weeks. But we never really stuck with it. The questions lingered, but we'd always return to our comfortable, predictable routine. No real need to dive any deeper. The moment we walked into the church, everything felt out of place. The familiar sounds that once comforted me now felt distant and awkward. The hymns were a blur of foreign notes, and the prayers seemed stiff, like something we were just supposed to recite but not really feel. Even the sermons, especially those about sin, salvation, and surrender, made me feel uneasy, like I was being judged from every angle. "I don't like how they make everything sound so serious and complicated," Sarah muttered after one particularly intense sermon about the narrow path to salvation. "We're good people, raising good kids. I don't think God expects us to be religious fanatics." I agreed completely. Sunday mornings were supposed to be our time to unwind, sleep in, read the paper, make pancakes for the kids, and just breathe after hectic weeks. Church, it felt like another burden in a life already packed with responsibilities. Besides, we reasoned we were teaching our children right from wrong, instilling strong moral values, and showing them how to live with integrity. Isn't that what really matters? Our extended family seemed to back this up. Sarah's parents, Jim and Carol, were decent people who showed up to church every so often, but never really talked about their faith, not in a personal way. My dad had remarried after my mom passed, and my stepmother, Janet, was grounded, a no-nonsense woman who believed in kindness and respect, but had zero tolerance for any sort of religious emotionalism. At family get-togethers, conversations revolved around work, sports, politics, and the kids' activities. Prayer, Bible study, spiritual growth. Those things never came up. Religion was just something private, like talking about your finances or your health problems. It was something that polite people didn't bring up. Over the years, I became an expert at defending my spiritual indifference. When religion came up, I would say I believed in God. Of course, how could you not when the universe was so impossibly intricate? But the God I believed in wasn't the micromanaging, hands-on figure in the Bible, watching every detail of our lives. No, my God was more like a distant grandfather, someone who loved everyone unconditionally and wanted people to be happy. As long as you weren't hurting anyone and did your best to be a good person, you'd be fine when your time came. Religious rules, just human inventions, added on to a simple relationship based on basic decency. This was the kind of thinking that allowed me to maintain my self-respect while avoiding any of the burdens that come with real faith. I could acknowledge God's existence, but never really have to do anything about it. I didn't have to pray, go to church, read the Bible, or think deeply about sin. I was good enough as I was. Whenever someone tried to push deeper into spiritual conversations, I'd deflect with humor or quickly change the subject. When Jehovah's Witnesses knocked on the door, I'd politely say I already had my beliefs figured out. When coworkers invited me to church events, I'd make up excuses about family obligations. I had my stock responses ready. I respect your faith, but I have my own relationship with God. Or, I think Jesus was a great teacher, but I don't believe God requires specific religious formulas from good-hearted people. The truth? I was terrified that really engaging with Christianity would require me to change, and I wasn't ready for that. My comfortable middle ground worked just fine, moral enough to feel good about myself, but not committed enough to let it mess with my life. By 2024, I was living the American dream. Regional sales director, responsible for a team of 12 sales reps spread across 3 states. We'd paid off our mortgage early by being smart with our finances, and we had made a nice little nest egg from careful investments. Our kids were doing great. Emma was a senior, planning to study pre-med, and Jake was a sophomore, already accepted into the National Honor Society. Sarah and I had faced the usual trials of marriage: financial stress during the recession, the loss of our parents, the chaos that comes with balancing careers and raising kids, but we'd made it through all of it stronger. I coached Emma's softball team to 3 league championships and never missed a single one of Jake's debate tournaments. I volunteered with the local United Way, served on the school board for 4 years, and had a reputation as a man of integrity. People knew me as someone who could be counted on, solid, reliable, trustworthy. If you had asked anyone who knew me to describe Justin Gosha, they would have called me a good man, a loving father, a faithful husband, and a loyal friend. I kept my word, paid my bills on time, treated employees fairly, and helped neighbors when they needed it. I'd never broken any serious laws, never betrayed Sarah's trust, never laid a hand on my children in anger, and never cheated on my taxes. My life was in order. Everything was in its place. I'd always been the one to make sure no one felt left out. At work, during those big company Christmas parties, I was the guy who made sure the shy new employees felt included. I'd notice the quiet ones, and I'd pull them into the conversations, making sure they knew they mattered. When my elderly neighbors needed help with their yards or had broken faucets, I was the first to volunteer. And when my coworkers were struggling with personal issues, I didn't hesitate to step up and cover their responsibilities. I did these things without thinking about it because it was just who I was. It was how I lived. I gave generously to disaster relief funds, sponsored children through World Vision, and made sure my family was always involved in community service projects, food drives, charity runs, helping out with whatever we could. We didn't need to be flashy about it, but we were always there, always giving. To the world, I was the example of a good person. By all the measures society used to judge character and success, I had it all. My children respected me, my wife loved me, my employees trusted me, my friends enjoyed my company, and the community valued my contributions. I was involved in local organizations, respected at work, and I was known as someone who could always be counted on to do the right thing. In every way that mattered, I was a good man. But that day, I was about to learn something that would shake everything I thought I knew. That Tuesday morning, December 3rd, started off like any other. I was driving to a client meeting in Columbus. The sun was low in the sky, casting that golden light over everything as I navigated the morning traffic. My thoughts were simple, focused on the meeting ahead, when I suddenly noticed something strange. A semi-truck next to me, it was swerving, drifting. The driver must have hit a patch of standing water. The trailer started to jackknife, sliding across the lanes. I had only a split second to react, but nothing prepared me for what happened next. The impact was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. The screeching of metal, the sound of shattering glass, the shriek of brakes. The noise was deafening. My car, this simple sedan I'd always driven, was suddenly crushed between the trailer and the concrete barrier. Everything happened so fast. My body was jerked and tossed, the world spinning in a blur. Then there was nothing but silence. Complete, overwhelming silence. I could hear voices in the distance, far away, but they felt muffled, like they were coming from a different world. I heard paramedics shouting, "We need the hydraulic cutters," and someone else urgently calling for a helicopter. But none of it felt real. It was like I was watching all of it from far, far away. I could feel myself fading, like I was slipping under the surface of a dark pool of water. The last thing I remember was hearing a paramedic's voice full of concern saying, "We're losing him. His pulse is weak." And then it went black, completely, utterly black. But this wasn't the end. Somehow it felt like it was only the beginning. I found myself standing, not in a dark void, but in a place of light, unimaginably bright, yet warm, alive, and overwhelmingly peaceful. It wasn't like the light of the sun. It wasn't like any light I could describe with words. It was different, so pure, so full of life. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt no fear, no worry, no anxiety, nothing. I had never felt such pure joy, such relief in my entire life. All the stress, all the pain, all the weight of the world had vanished in an instant. I thought to myself, this is heaven. I made it. I'm here. After everything, I made it. But then the light, it began to take shape. And I saw him, Jesus. He was walking toward me, radiant with such holiness, such authority, that it made me drop to my knees without even thinking. His presence was unlike anything I'd ever felt. His eyes, deep and all-knowing, were full of love, so much love, but also a piercing intensity that seemed to look straight into every hidden corner of my heart. His gaze was so penetrating, I felt like I was laid bare before him. But in those eyes there was no judgment, only the kind of love that is impossible to describe. "Justin," he said. Hearing my name, spoken by the Creator himself, it was like thunder and tenderness woven together. There was power in his voice, but it was a power filled with compassion, with understanding. "Lord," I whispered, and in that moment, I knew what that word meant. I knew it as if I had always known it, but had never truly understood it. But instead of the welcome I had expected, instead of hearing, "Well done, good and faithful servant," or "You made it," Jesus spoke words that shook me to my very core. "This sin," he said, his voice steady yet full of sorrow, "this sin is the devil's most successful trap. It has led countless souls to hell." I was confused, terrified. I couldn't understand. What sin was he talking about? I had lived a good life, hadn't I? I'd never murdered, never stolen, never lied in a way that could destroy a person's life. I had been a loving husband, a devoted father, a reliable employee, a good neighbor. I had given to charity. I had done good work in my community. I had done everything I thought I was supposed to do. So what could possibly be so bad? Jesus looked at me as if he could see everything inside me, and he said, "Justin, you have lived your life believing that your goodness was enough. You thought that being moral, having good intentions, could earn you eternal life, but you were wrong. This is spiritual complacency, and it's filling hell faster than murder, adultery, or any evil you can imagine. The space around me shifted, and I was no longer standing alone in that place of light. Instead, I found myself in the middle of a scene. Millions of people living their daily lives. I could see them clearly as if I was standing right next to them, seeing every small action, every little moment, every choice they made. They looked so familiar, like reflections of the life I once knew. Ordinary people, kind people. The sort of folks who mow their lawns on Saturday mornings, wave at their neighbors, show up to work on time, pay their bills, and do their best to be good. I saw fathers fixing broken bikes in driveways, mothers folding clean laundry while soft music played in the background, kids running through sprinklers, and laughter echoing down quiet suburban streets. On the surface, it was all so decent, so normal, so good. But as Jesus turned my eyes deeper, everything began to shift. At first, I didn't understand what he wanted me to see. Then, like a veil being pulled away, I saw what he saw, and it broke me. These people weren't wicked or cruel. They were simply asleep, spiritually numb, alive in body but empty in soul. I could feel the weight of their spiritual blindness pressing against me, a quiet corruption hidden beneath polite smiles and busy schedules. There was a businessman I noticed, polished suit, calm voice, respected by everyone. He gave to charities, mentored young workers, even kept a photo of his family on his desk to remind him of what mattered. I watched him bow his head at banquets when prayers were said, but I never once saw his heart bow in surrender. He thanked luck for his success, never grace. He took pride in his honesty, yet never looked up to acknowledge the one who gave him breath. Then there was a mother, tender, fierce, full of love. I could almost smell the cookies baking in her kitchen, hear the laughter of her children as she tucked them into bed. She taught them kindness, fairness, responsibility, but she never taught them to pray. She trusted her instincts more than her creator. She thought love alone could light their path, not realizing that without Christ, even the brightest love eventually flickers. I saw a teacher, a man who stayed after class to help struggling students, who spent his own money on school supplies. His students adored him, and the world would have called him a hero. Yet he never knew he needed saving. His good works were heavy in his hands, but empty before God. A nurse caught my eye next. Her back ached from double shifts, her hands raw from washing, her heart big enough to carry the world's pain. I watched her soothe the dying, feed the hungry, volunteer at shelters on weekends. But when she came home and sat in silence, she didn't pray. She didn't thank the one who gave her that compassion. Her kindness became her comfort, not her worship. And then a construction worker, sweat on his brow, dust on his boots, honest as they come. Everyone trusted him. He built houses that stood strong against storms, yet his own foundation was crumbling. He never opened a Bible, never asked what God wanted of him. He thought decency was enough. Each of them was good by every human measure. Good neighbors, good parents, good souls, as the world would say. But when I looked through Jesus' eyes, I saw a dark mist around them. Not the obvious chaos of evil, no screaming demons, no visible flames. It was quieter than that. A creeping shadow of pride, of comfort, of self-satisfaction. The darkness of thinking, I'm fine, I don't need saving. Look closer, Jesus said. His voice was gentle, but heavy, like thunder wrapped in sorrow, and I saw it. Moments, small, ordinary moments when heaven had whispered to them. A death in the family, a restless night. A sunset so beautiful it made their hearts ache. Each time God had called, each time they brushed it aside. Later, they thought, I'm a good person. This, Jesus said softly, is the enemy's greatest work, his masterpiece. His face was full of grief. He doesn't need them to hate me. He only needs to keep them satisfied with themselves. My heart cracked open as I watched their lives play out like scenes in a movie I couldn't stop. Birthdays, promotions, tears, laughter, all passing like smoke. And then I saw them die. One by one, they stood before Christ. They came with confidence at first, even smiles. They spoke of their good deeds, their charity, their honesty, their love. I never hurt anyone, they said. I tried to do right. Surely that counts for something. And Jesus, with tears in his eyes, answered them with truth, so gentle it cut like fire. I felt Jesus' eyes on me. His gaze was so intense, it felt like it was cutting through everything I'd ever known. "Justin," he asked, "do you see yourself among them?" And in that moment, it was like the walls of my life came crashing down. Suddenly, I could see everything clearly. My 45 years of spiritual complacency, all the years I thought being a good person was enough. I had treated God like some faraway idea, a distant concept I gave a nod to every now and then, but never something that demanded my full surrender. I saw how, time and time again, he had tried to reach me through the death of my mother when I was drowning in grief, and he gently reached out. Through the crises in my life when I could have turned to prayer but chose not to. I saw how I had ignored his quiet conviction, choosing instead to build my own version of God, a grandfatherly figure who was happy with basic decency. I had never truly sought the real God, the one who demands repentance, faith, and complete surrender. "Lord, I thought being good was enough," I cried out, my heart breaking. I never realized that my goodness was the very thing keeping me from you. It was as if a weight had been lifted, but the truth that came with it was devastating. I understood it then. This was history's greatest deception. Jesus spoke softly, yet firmly. The devil convinced you that salvation is earned through good behavior, instead of received through faith. He made you trust your own righteousness rather than mine. Those words hit me like a freight train. I fell to my knees, overwhelmed by the weight of my spiritual blindness. For 45 years, I had walked confidently toward destruction, all the while congratulating myself for being morally superior. But what about all the good things I did? I pleaded, almost desperately. Jesus looked at me with deep compassion, his voice calm but full of love. "Your good works were real, Justin, but they were never meant to be the foundation of salvation. They should have been the fruit of a transformed heart, not the root of your hope. You tried to earn your way to heaven when all you had to do was accept the free gift of grace." Then, as if time itself had stopped, he showed me what my life could have been. The same outward goodness, but now flowing from a heart that had been truly changed, surrendered, genuinely transformed. Good works done not to earn salvation, but because salvation had already been given. And then, as I felt myself being pulled back toward my body, Jesus spoke one final time. His words felt like a lifeline in the chaos. "Justin," he said, "I'm sending you back, not to condemn the good people, but to warn them. Tell them that morality without spirituality leads to destruction. Tell them the devil's most successful trap isn't making them bad, but keeping them satisfied with being good." With that, I was suddenly back. I woke up gasping for air, the beeping of machines filling my ears, the frantic movements of medical staff all around me. Sarah was at my side, her face streaked with tears, holding my hand so tightly it felt like she was holding on for both of us. "Justin," she sobbed, "you were gone for 9 minutes. They said you were clinically dead." But the first words out of my mouth weren't about my physical pain or the machines beeping around me. I was frantic, my heart racing. "I have to tell everyone. Being good isn't enough." Sarah looked at me, eyes wide with concern. I could see the fear on her face, but I had to speak the truth. "Jesus showed me the truth about salvation," I said, my voice trembling. "The physical healing, it's nothing compared to the spiritual transformation. During those 9 minutes, everything I thought I knew about God, about salvation, about eternal life, it was all turned upside down. I realized I had been spiritually dead for 45 years, thinking I was alive. From that moment, I couldn't keep it in. I had to share what had happened to me. So I began to tell everyone, friends, coworkers, even strangers. The reactions were always mixed. Some were deeply convicted, their eyes wide as if they could see the truth for the first time. But others, most of them, were offended. How could I tell them that just being good wasn't enough for salvation? My old golf buddies thought I had lost my mind. Tom, the guy I'd known for years, looked at me with disbelief. "Justin," he said, shaking his head, "you're starting to sound like one of those born-again fanatics. We're all good people. We don't cheat, we don't steal, we help our families. If that's not good enough for God, then his standards are impossible." I looked him in the eye, and my heart hurt for him. "That's exactly the point, Tom," I said. "God's standards are impossible by human measures because he's perfect. That's why salvation can't be earned. It has to be a gift. We can't work our way into heaven." Then there was Mike, my brother-in-law. He was a successful attorney, always so logical, so calculated. He had a different reaction than anyone else. "Justin," he said, his voice tinged with confusion, "you're asking me to throw away 43 years of logical thought, of everything I've built my life on, and embrace something that can't be proven." The words stung, but they were just the beginning of the real battle. One I didn't know how to fight yet, but I was ready for. The shift had already happened inside me. There's a question that most of us avoid, often without realizing its urgency. What really happens when we die? And are we prepared based on God's standards or our own? Mike paused for a moment, looking down, almost like he was lost in thought. Then he spoke up, saying, "If there is a God, I'm sure he'll understand. He'll look at my life, good husband, loving father, honest lawyer, generous contributor, and he'll see that I'm decent enough for whatever comes after this life." That's when I realized something powerful. It hit me hard. This is exactly what Jesus warned me about. We've created a version of God who thinks just like we do. We've made him fit into our idea of what's right and fair. But what if the real God has a completely different standard? What if the way we measure goodness, the way we measure life, doesn't match up with God's perfect standard? Those conversations weren't easy, but they were necessary. They opened my eyes. I understood that this experience I'd been given wasn't just for me. It was a warning to others, people who, like Mike, believe their own moral strength and good deeds are enough to stand before God. It's a path that looks like it leads toward God, but in reality, it leads away from him. Exactly 1 year after my accident, I received a letter. It was from a man named David. His words confirmed everything Jesus had shown me, everything I had witnessed in that moment. David wrote, "I've been thinking about your testimony for weeks, and it hit me. What you described was my life. I'm 52 years old. I've been married for 28 years. I've raised 3 wonderful kids. I've built a profitable business and treated my employees and customers with fairness and respect. But here's the thing. I've never knelt down and cried out to God for mercy. I've never admitted that my good works, no matter how many they are not enough. I've never surrendered my life to Jesus Christ or experienced the rebirth you talked about. I've been relying on my own righteousness instead of his. I thought being a good person would be enough. Your message made me realize I've been playing a dangerous game. I can't keep living in that delusion anymore." When I read David's letter, my heart sank, but I also knew deep down that God had brought me back for a reason. He had pulled me out of death and given me this experience to deliver a specific warning, to reach out to those well-meaning, moral people who think they're okay because of their good deeds, but who've never experienced the life-changing power of God's grace. My name is Justin Gosha. I died for 9 minutes on December 3rd, 2024. And in those 9 minutes, I learned something that shook me to the core. I learned that the devil's most effective trap isn't to make people evil, it's to make them comfortable in their goodness. Hell is filled with people who lived good lives, who never recognized their need for a savior. The most dangerous sin isn't committing obvious evil, it's the sin of spiritual complacency. It's the belief that just because you're a decent person, you're somehow saved. That's the lie that's destroying more souls than we can imagine. If you're sitting there thinking, I'm a good person, I help others, I follow the golden rule, I need you to listen closely. Jesus loves your good heart, but good isn't enough. It never will be. The standard isn't good. It's perfection. You can't earn what only God can give. You need spiritual transformation, not just moral improvement. You need God's grace, not your good works. You need Christ's righteousness, not your own. Don't let the devil deceive you into thinking that because you're a good person, you don't need Jesus. Because, my friend, that belief will keep you farther from God than you realize. If you think your moral life is enough to guarantee your eternity, please take this to heart. Don't let your own goodness stand in the way of God's grace. Seek Jesus, not as an addition to your life, but as the foundation of your spiritual life. Because if you don't, spiritual complacency will lead you to eternal separation from the God who loves you and died for you. If this message has convicted you, if you feel that warning stirring in your heart, I need you to help spread this truth. It's time to wake up. Please write "good isn't enough" in the comments below. Tell me what country you're from. Subscribe to this channel so you won't miss another warning God is giving to his people. And most importantly, share this message with 3 people who need to hear this truth, especially those who think that their moral life guarantees their eternal destiny. Time is short, and every soul that understands the difference between being good and being saved could be the difference between heaven and hell.